Hello, my friends. To stay updated with new videos, you can support me by subscribing to the channel and liking the content. I wish you all a good listening experience. My name is Farouk, and today I want to share my own story with you. For a long time, I kept silent about what happened. I never spoke of it, nor did I allow anyone else to bring it up. But now, I feel the need to share it and finally free myself from the weight I've been carrying. So, without stretching it any further, let me begin. I was the only child in my family. My parents had me after many years of waiting, and they raised me with love and care. They never once raised their voices at me, and though I was given everything I asked for, I never grew up spoiled. I always respected them and never wanted to hurt their hearts. Years passed, and the time for my military service came. Like many young men, before leaving, there was someone special. I had my eyes on a girl from our village named Sevda. She was the most beautiful girl in the village, but life had been cruel to her. She lost both her parents at a very young age and was raised by her uncle. Despite everything, her pure heart, her proud stance, and those innocent eyes had completely captured me. And I knew she liked me as well. Whenever our paths crossed, our glances lingered longer than they should. Before leaving for service, I told my mother that once I returned, I wished to marry. She was delighted and said, "Of course, my son. Come back safe and sound, and whatever you want, we'll make it happen." That promise filled me with joy. But when I came back, everything had changed. My mother had already chosen someone for me, Sevda's cousin, Selin. She kept telling me how Selin was the right match, how she was beautiful, taller, and from a stronger family background. "Sevda is an orphan," she said. "What will you do with a girl who has no mother or father?" But no matter what she said, my heart belonged to Sevda, and I wasn't going to change my mind. One day, my parents and I went to her uncle's house for what everyone thought was a proposal for Selin. But when the moment came, and my father began to speak, I interrupted and said with a smile, "We are here to ask for Sevda's hand." The room fell into silence. Sevda, standing shyly by the kitchen door, had tears in her eyes, but when she realized I had chosen her, her eyes sparkled with joy. Her uncle was taken aback. "Son, you know she's not really my daughter. She is my late brother's child. We only took her in after her parents died." "Are you sure about this?" he asked. And I replied firmly, "That doesn't matter to me. I love her, and I want to marry her with God's blessing." Though there was tension among the families, in the end, Sevda and I were married. But from the very first day, my mother began treating her harshly. She would say cruel things, trying to belittle her. At first, I stayed silent, but eventually, I warned my mother, if she ever hurt Sevda again, I would leave with her and never come back. Only then did my mother hold her tongue, at least for a while. Months passed, and one evening, I came home to find Sevda in tears. She told me that my mother had been tormenting her, frightening her in her sleep, trying to drive her mad. When I confronted my mother, she swore she had done nothing. My mother was not one to swear falsely, so I didn't know whom to believe. Sevda grew angry, saying no one trusted her. Things got worse. She began having nightmares, hearing strange sounds. I took her to the village imam, who told us that she carried a heavy burden, perhaps from fear or something unseen. He gave her prayers to read each night. But nothing changed until we realized the truth: Sevda was pregnant. From that moment, everything shifted. Even my mother's attitude softened. For a while, life seemed brighter, and Sevda, despite her exhaustion, carried her pregnancy with hope. But then, in her 8th month, tragedy struck. One night, she rose from bed saying she needed the bathroom. When she didn't return, I went to check and found her collapsed, covered in blood. I rushed to hold her, but before I could even call for help, Her screams filled the house. My parents came running. My father went to fetch the village midwife while my mother tried to comfort her. We placed our hope in the midwife, who had helped many women before. We believed she would save my wife and our child. I was certain we would hold our baby safely in our arms. Even though it was an early birth, I thought to myself, this must be fate. Soon after, I heard the cry of my child, and tears filled my eyes. I was a father now, and it was one of the most important moments of my life. I went to Sevda's side and gently stroked her hair. She wasn't fully conscious, murmuring words I couldn't quite understand. After she was cleaned and laid in bed, my mother told me, "Go rest, son. I'll take care of the baby." But sleep wouldn't come to me. I stayed by Sevda's side all night, unsettled by how she kept repeating strange words, not in Turkish, but in Arabic. I never knew she spoke the language, so I assumed she was praying and dismissed it. 2 weeks passed since the birth, but something inside me began to change. Every time I looked at Sevda, irritation consumed me. She no longer cared for herself, her hair uncombed, her appearance neglected. One day I lost my patience. "Why don't you take care of yourself? You've lost all your beauty. Do your hair, put on some perfume, you reek." My words crushed her, and she broke into tears. Around that time, Selin came to visit. The moment she entered, the scent of her perfume filled the house. It was my favorite fragrance. Her long hair reached her waist, her eyes shone with confidence, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. She greeted me kindly, but I was so captivated that I could barely respond. From that day forward, my thoughts were consumed by her. Day and night, I imagined being with Selin. It was wrong, I knew it, but temptation gnawed at me. One day, while my parents were away and Sevda was putting the baby to sleep, Selin came again. She looked at me in a way that told me everything. I confessed, "I want to be with you. To spend time together, just us." She smiled and admitted she felt the same. "But what about Sevda? She could find out." I shrugged. "Let her think whatever she wants. I don't care anymore." Her smile grew wider. "Then why don't you divorce her?" she asked. I hesitated. After all, I had fought so hard to marry Sevda. If I ask for a divorce now, my family will kill me. But Selin insisted, "No one will oppose you. Don't waste your life. Tell them as soon as possible. You deserve to be happy." That night, I told Sevda I wanted a divorce. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you insane? How can you say that? Our baby is still so small, how will I manage without you?" But I coldly replied, "Take the child and go wherever you want. I don't care." The words came out of my mouth before I even realized it. I couldn't stand the sight of her anymore. Although my parents objected at first, they eventually respected my decision, though they insisted I wait until the baby was older. I laid down my terms: "Until then, we'll live like strangers under the same roof. Nothing more." Sevda wept every time she looked at me, making me feel guilty, but resentment burned stronger than pity. I started spending more time outside, where I could breathe, while at home I felt suffocated. Around Selin, I felt alive again. One night, after storming out, I wandered the streets. That's when I saw it, a black goat standing in my path. But this was no ordinary goat. It was larger than normal, its eyes gleaming unnaturally bright. It stood still, staring straight at me. As I walked past, I felt its gaze follow me. When I turned back, the creature had moved closer, only a few steps behind me now. Then, to my horror, it rose onto 2 legs and grinned at me. The sight chilled me to the bone. If it were up to me, I would have thrown her out the door long ago. But my conscience wouldn't let me. Sometimes I sit and think this woman I once loved so madly had become just another stranger to me. That night, as I lay in bed with my eyes closed, trying to fall asleep, I heard Sevda whispering again. I begged her to stop, told her I couldn't sleep, but she didn't listen. She kept talking. Frustrated, I turned toward her and froze. It wasn't Sevda anymore. Standing beside the baby's crib was a tall, horned creature with razor-sharp teeth, rocking the child back and forth. I leapt up, ready to snatch my baby away, but before I could take a step, the creature spun around, grabbed me by the throat with massive hands, and lifted me into the air. My vision blurred, and within seconds I was crashing to the floor. When I came to, I rushed to the crib. Thank God, the baby was unharmed. Sevda, too, stood there untouched as if nothing had happened. But the truth was, I felt nothing for her anymore. Not even pity. Sometimes I even wished she would just disappear from my life. Still, I couldn't shake the guilt. That night, every time I closed my eyes, I sank into terrifying dreams. I would be swallowed by darkness, only to hear Sevda's voice pulling me back. The next day, confused and shaken, I decided to tell Selin everything. When I told her about my dreams, about Sevda saving me from the darkness, she shook her head. No, she said firmly. She's the one dragging you into it. Don't you know? Sevda used to deal with spells and charms. Dark things. That's why I always kept my distance. If you don't walk away now, you'll never escape her. I couldn't believe it. Sevda, cruel. Impossible. I had known her for years, and she had never so much as uttered a harsh word to anyone. I didn't love her anymore, true, but I couldn't bring myself to believe she was evil. Still, I left. Selin and I fled to Istanbul, staying in her friend's house. At first, things seemed fine. But soon the nightmares returned darker, heavier. Every night I woke drained, too weak to function during the day. Selin tried to care for me cooking, insisting I stay inside, even keeping me from calling my family. I hadn't even asked about my child in months. One evening, there was a knock at the door. Selin opened it, then quietly stepped aside. To my shock, it was Orhan, my closest friend. We sat together, and his eyes searched me with disbelief. "What happened to you?" he asked. "You left your family, your child, this isn't you." He was right. I wasn't myself anymore. Everything since leaving Sevda had felt like a nightmare. Orhan told me to come home. He promised to help. But I hesitated, afraid of Selin's reaction. Later that night, unable to sleep, I approached Selin's room. When I opened the door, my blood froze. Strange symbols covered the walls. Candles flickered everywhere. Selin sat cross-legged in the center, her back turned. When I demanded to know what she was doing, she spun around, her eyes black as coal. Panic took over. I bolted from the room, but no matter where I turned, I saw her face, heard her whispers. I ran outside into the night. My phone was still inside, I had no way to call for help. Alone on the dark street, I wandered until I collapsed on a bench. My body shook, not from cold, but from terror. Memories of Sevda flooded me, her laughter, her smile. For the first time, I longed to go back, to be with my family again. But then I saw him. A figure lurking in the shadows. At first, I thought he was just a madman, but when he drew closer, I realized he wasn't human. His torn face stretched into a grotesque grin, his massive hands tipped with claws. I ran. Running was all I seemed to do these days. My lungs burned, but I didn't stop until I reached the mosque. Dawn was near. Inside, a few men were waiting for prayer. I sat quietly in a corner, trying to gather myself. But then, slowly, one by one, they all turned to look at me. Their faces had changed. Like the creature before, their mouths split open from ear to ear. Their eyes glowed with malice. My legs gave out beneath me as they began to walk toward me. The last thing I remember was darkness swallowing me whole. When I woke, it was still the mosque. Just a dream, I told myself. Just another nightmare. Yet the fear clung to me. After the prayer, I wept as I prayed, begging for relief. The Imam noticed my state, offered me tea, and urged me to tell him everything. And so I did. I confessed it all, the nightmares, my mistakes, the choices that had led me here. He listened patiently, then said, "Yes, you've strayed. And the price of sin is heavy. But if you repent, if you fight to make things right, perhaps God will show you mercy." I wanted to believe him. But deep down, I feared it was too late. The rope slipped from my hand and fell, somehow knotting itself at my feet. I was stunned. The Imam placed his hand over my head, recited a few prayers, then blew over the water and my face. He handed the bowl back and told me to taste it again to tell him how it smelled and how it felt. I sniffed, sipped, and this time it was strange, bitter, heavy. I had said 1 year, but that water went down my throat like a stone. After drinking it, my stomach turned violently. "Imam, what did you put in that water? I feel awful. I'm going to vomit," I said. "Don't worry, you will not vomit. Everything will go in," he replied. He wrote a short prayer on a scrap of paper, folded it into a talisman and pressed it into my hand. "Keep this with you," he said. "Don't take it off. When you leave, go straight to your family." "Thank you for everything, Imam," I said, standing up. He stopped me and gave one last instruction: "If those horrors return, put the talisman into a glass of water, divide that water into 4 parts, drink 1, wash with another while you shower, and sprinkle the remaining 2 around your home and clothing." I took his words to heart and left feeling slightly lighter, though a strange unease still nagged me. Something bad felt inevitable, but I resolved to stay strong. I went back to collect my things. When I stepped inside, I couldn't believe my eyes. The place had been utterly wrecked. I called for Selin several times with no answer. Nothing was left intact. I reported the scene and Selin's disappearance to the police. They examined the house and said it looked like she had trashed the place before leaving, or someone had done it and fled. I stayed at the station until evening and was later released. They were still looking for Selin. They were waiting for me with huge, blood-stained knives in their hands. I took a few shaky steps and begged God again, "Please, Lord, help me. I beg you, end this nightmare. I can't take it anymore." I dropped to my knees, tears streaming, praying desperately. I could feel those heavy figures moving closer to the door, pressing to come inside. With every step they took, it felt like pieces of my soul were being torn away. Just a few more steps and they would be upon me. I couldn't bear it. I shut my eyes tight and covered my face with my hands. But then, only seconds later, I felt a warm hand on my shoulder. I lifted my head and saw the Imam standing over me. "Farouk, what's going on? What are you doing here in this state?" he asked. I clung to him, sobbing. "Please, Hokam, help me. I'm living through something terrible. I'm terrified." He lifted me up by the arms. "Tell me, what has happened? What is your burden?" I poured out everything I had been through: the nightmares, the visit to another Imam, the prayers, and water. He nodded gravely. "Yes, that teacher helped you. He did everything right. But this sorcery, it wasn't meant only for you. That's why your torment hasn't ended. It was cast upon your home, upon your wife as well. We need to find her so it can be fully broken. First, though, we must cleanse your house." The sky was already turning pale when we reached my family's home. I hesitated. "Hokam, my father threw me out. He won't let me inside. Maybe you should talk to him first." He gripped my arm firmly. "Come on. No more excuses. When we arrived, my father's eyes flared with rage. You again? Didn't I tell you never to come back? He lunged at me, but the Imam stepped between us. Your son has been under the influence of sorcery, he said firmly. What he did not do in his right mind. Together, we entered the house. The Imam searched quietly, then returned with several amulets he had found hidden inside. He laid them out in front of us. See? These were planted here. They were written to drive you and your wife apart. This curse was meant to break your bond. Now, we must find your wife. I told him she had left and no one knew where she was. He thought for a moment. Do you still have any of her belongings? Yes, I said, rushing to our room. I found her comb and a hair clip and handed them to him. He took the items back to the mosque with me. Once again, he recited prayers, gave me water to drink, then poured the same blessed water over Sevda's belongings while whispering supplications over them. Finally, he blew onto the objects and said with certainty, "Don't worry. Within 3 days, everything will return to normal. This curse has been lifted from you. Go live your life in peace." I was still afraid, still half expecting the nightmare to return, but the Imam's confidence gave me strength. When I tried to kiss his hand in thanks, he stopped me. When I offered him money, he cut me off. "I did this for God's sake," he said simply. I thanked him and returned home. My father's anger had softened. All of us waited anxiously for Sevda. And then, 2 days later, she came back, our baby in her arms. The moment I saw her, I dropped to my knees and begged her forgiveness. Tears choked her voice as she embraced me. She admitted she had been certain she could never forgive me, that her heart had turned cold. But she had dreamed of me the night before, and in that dream all her hatred and bitterness melted away. From that day on, we held onto each other more tightly than ever, and I did everything I could to protect our family. Still, I couldn't help thinking about Selin. Not because I missed her, but because I feared something terrible might happen to her, and if it did, I knew I would be blamed. Thankfully, she later called her family to say she had moved to another city and would stay there. After that, her family cut off all contact with us. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that my wife and child were with me. As for who had done this to us, it was Selin, of course. Out of bitterness, out of spite, she had cursed us, trying to tear us apart. Years have passed since then, but sometimes those memories still rise up before my eyes, and they disturb me deeply. That is why I close this story here, never to open it again. God bless you all. That was my story. Thank you for listening, I truly appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next videos. Until we meet again, take care my friends.